Is your campaign carbon neutral? I noticed your bus out there being a diesel bus, and I remember Kucinich, for example, had a vegetable oil bus. Are you
We've done everything we can to keep our carbon footprint down. I think one of the things that I do is I never fly in a private plane, but I'm still on a plane. So I try everything I can to be carbon neutral, and we try and avoid everything we can. We've looked at that. In my life, just so you know, I actually spend a lot of time looking at my carbon footprint and trying to use our farm to sequester carbon so I can feel as if I'm doing my part personally, in fact, not to have a big carbon footprint.
Page 3 now, the man-made climate change hoax. Fine. It's fine if Tom Steyer wants to wring his hands and go on his farm over his carbon footprint. That's fine. That's his choice. But what about children? These young, sensitive minds are getting swept up in this very partisan and adult effort to impose a radical ideology on all of we the people. In a very real sense, what these grown-ups are doing to our kids is tantamount to child abuse. Joining me now from Southern California, forensic psychiatrist Dr. Carole Lieberman. Doctor, frankly, I watched this happening. And you look at Greta Thunberg, you know, she's maybe the prime example. I don't know what's going on in Greta Thunberg's household. But I just look at her and I feel sad that her parents are allowing her to be used as this political pawn for what I would term as a radical ideology.
Yes, absolutely. We could do a whole show about what's going on in Greta Thunberg's mind. Yeah. But you know, what's even more dangerous than climate change is the fact that there's this growing trend of using kids as political pawns. And we've seen this, we've begun to see this with the guns, you know, when Parkland kids were the poster children for guns, you know, banning guns. And then, of course, with sexual identity issues, and now with climate change, and Greta Thunberg is the poster child for this. And of course, kids are sort of the perfect marketing tool because they're very easily influenced, brainwashed. And they're better than, like, you know, in advertisements, better than just putting kids in an ad and a puppy, because kids can march.
Right. And as Rush Limbaugh would call them, minds of mush. But he's right in that they're easily influenced, and they're being used by these adults. They're pushed out there on national television, like that young man in Florida who's constantly now on social media talking about, you know, getting rid of guns. And you know, we've seen this before, and we'll probably see it again. It's a weapon, I'm sorry, by one party versus another, one ideology versus another. And I think that we have to stipulate that what we're talking about here is a radical ideology. This notion of man-made climate change is not science. It's junk science. The world has been around, I think last I checked, 4.5 billion years. And during that time, there's been climate change. That's how ice ages ended, right? Global warming took care at some point of ice ages. So we got to stipulate that. But there's this new syndrome that exists right now that is in, I guess, in the medical pages now. I don't know if you've seen it or not. It's called eco-anxiety. It refers to a fear of environmental damage or ecological disaster. This sense of anxiety is largely based on the current and predicted future state of the environment and human-induced climate change, aka liberal psychosis here. And so this is what adults are imposing on children.
Well, you know, particularly because climate change, you know, so-called climate change, is difficult for even scientists to understand, and they're certainly debating it, as you were essentially alluding to. And so for kids, it's way above their head. And what it comes down to for them is adults are ruining the world, adults are going to make me die, and really what it comes down to is mommy and daddy don't love me. They're doing things so that I'm going to die, which of course is incredibly dangerous, as is getting them to feel, you know, it makes kids and adults feel anxious, depressed. It makes people feel like, well, what's the point of trying so hard? You know, kids in school studying or adults working so hard in their career.
A sense of helplessness, right?
Yes.
And that, you know, what's, like you said, why should I even bother going to school? So there's going to be anxiety. There's going to be anger. There's going to be sleeplessness. Grades are going to suffer if kids get swept up into something like this, and they want to end up staying in their rooms, right?
Yes.
And we're raising a generation of zombies. So you couple this with the whole video game thing, it's little wonder why sometimes we turn out this younger generation of stressed out kids, some of whom walk into their schools and shoot everybody up.
Right. And, you know, it also, because they think, let's live for today, it causes them to use alcohol, to use drugs, to be promiscuous. And then, of course, the ultimate is, if I'm going to be dying soon anyway because of climate change, then I might as well kill myself. That's the ultimate worst part of it.
As a parent, you know, what I always tried to do with my daughter was to insulate her from certain things, right? She didn't need to know that, you know, Dad had a big bill on his table that he had to pay and it was stressing Dad out. These are things that you need to insulate your children from. And to me, this is one of those things that parents should insulate children from, not get them in the mainstream in the middle of.
Well, you know, I think parents can talk about, and teachers can talk about the idea of climate and the different, you know, according to the age level, to talk about it in a sort of general, innocuous kind of way, like science class, but not to push an agenda that, oh my God, we're all going to die soon.
Right, because it is, in my opinion, is tantamount to child abuse. If you use children in this way as political pawns, how is it not child abuse?
Yes, I agree, because adults are manipulating the kids, and the result is causing all of these psychological problems.
Yeah, and the Greta Thunbergs of the world and these kids that are pushing gun control don't know. They're too young to understand that they're being used.
Manipulated, right.
They're being manipulated. Carol, thank you.
Thank you.